There is an emotion modern humans fear more than physical pain, the invisible panic of the mind. It strikes without warning, shapeless, baseless, yet powerful enough to convince you that you're on the verge of collapse. A missed heartbeat, a gasping breath, a fleeting dizziness. And just like that, the mind begins to conjure the worst-case scenarios. Everyone has had such a moment. When reason knows there's no real danger, but the body still trembles with fear. This book is written for that very moment. The moment between reason and instinct, reality and illusion, between the calm individual and the one crying for help. This book doesn't promise to eliminate anxiety. It does something braver. It teaches people to walk straight into its core instead of seeking reassurance. Barry McDonough confronts the deepest paradox of mental life. If you want to stop being afraid, you must learn to fear completely. He doesn't talk about breath control or positive thinking, but about giving the body permission to tremble, the mind permission to panic, and then witnessing how it naturally returns to normal, not through willpower, but through such deep acceptance that fear no longer has a reason to exist. In a world where everyone seeks to be fine, this book is a countercurrent jolt. It's not about calm, but about courage. The quiet courage of one who dares to feel the entirety of fear without running away. Because only when touching the limits of panic does one discover the simplest truth. Fear cannot kill anyone. It only waits to be seen. And perhaps the opening question for the listener isn't how to stop being anxious, but rather, if anxiety isn't an enemy but a mirror reflecting the unhealed parts within us, do we have the courage to look into it without turning away? In life, there are times when people feel like a small boat tossed in a stormy sea, with nowhere left to hide, no strength left to brace themselves. When the mind wants to escape its own body, when breath becomes heavy like carrying stones, that's when one feels imprisoned within their own soul. But the truth is, no real bars exist. That prison is built by fear, and only the one inside holds the key to unlock it. I've seen thousands of people standing at that threshold and all carry the same question: how do I escape my own fear? I tell them this simple truth: you are your own healer. There is no magic. No one can pull you out of the darkness except your own hands. Your body is not the enemy. It's only sending distress signals, the pounding heart, the rapid breaths. All are not signs of madness, but merely the raw voice of an overloaded nervous system. The first thing to remember is that anxiety is not a malfunction. It's a natural reaction of a body still functioning normally. What causes suffering isn't anxiety itself, but the fear of anxiety. That fear repeats until we believe we have a problem. But if we stop fighting, the body will restore itself. Among the thousands of people I've met, from police officers, pilots, doctors, to single mothers, not a single one was truly weak. They just hadn't understood how to cooperate with their bodies. A soldier can face bombs and bullets, yet still tremble when sitting in a barber's chair, because his mind associates fear with that place. When we understand this principle, the recovery process begins. That process unfolds in natural stages. In the first stage, panic attacks gradually become less frequent. The body begins to realize that those seemingly dangerous signals are actually just echoes of adrenaline. When trust returns, we move to the second stage. The overall level of anxiety decreases. Someone who was once afraid to go out can now drive, can sit in a cafe without feeling suffocated. Then comes the third stage, where obsessive thoughts no longer hold the same power. Instead of piercing the mind like blades, they are just like a fleeting breeze. The body no longer overreacts, the feeling of unreality fades. But then comes a stage that feels like a regression, when anxiety returns as powerfully as on the first day. That is inevitable. It's not a failure but the final test. When we stand firm amidst that wave, not running, not condemning ourselves, that's when we have won. Many people give up here, thinking they're back at square one, but the truth is, in that very moment, the body is learning to be completely self-sufficient. After that relapse, anxiety gradually disappears like mist in the morning. People suddenly realize they've lived a whole day without thinking about fear. Then a week, then a month. No alarm bells, just the sweet silence of normalcy. These 6 stages are not linear. No two people are the same. Some need a few months, some a few years. But the rule is the same. When you stop fearing fear itself, the body will heal itself. Just as the sun slowly melts the mist, light doesn't chase away darkness. It simply exists and darkness dissipates on its own. Recovery isn't about fighting, but about returning to life's natural rhythm. Fear is a contraction. And when we allow the body to breathe, that contraction gradually loosens. I still remember the image of a woman who was once afraid to step outside her house. She said that just hearing the sound of traffic would make her heart pound to the point of suffocation. After a few months, when she learned not to run away, she started going out. First, she stepped onto her porch, then to the end of her lane. Then one day she sent me a picture of herself smiling on her first flight in 10 years. She said, "I'm not free of anxiety, I just don't fear it anymore." That statement to me is the truest definition of recovery. Not perfection, just freedom. To achieve that, we need a method, a language to talk to fear instead of screaming in silence. I call it DARE. Diffuse, allow, run toward, engage. Imagine a wave. When you try to block it, it pushes you down, but when you ride with it, it carries you to the top. Anxiety is the same. It's a surging and receding energy flow. The problem isn't the wave, but how we react to it. The first step is to diffuse the fear response when anxiety strikes. The mind immediately brings up, what if questions, what if I faint in a crowd, what if my heart stops, what if I lose control? These what ifs are fuel for panic. Just one spark and the entire nervous system ignites. To extinguish it, we don't argue, we don't try to reassure ourselves, we simply say one phrase, so what? A simple phrase, yet powerful enough to break the cycle of fear. So what if my heart pounds? It's just a muscle working. So what if I feel dizzy? I'll sit down. So what if I'm afraid? I can still live. When we answer, so what? The power of fear begins to waver. The mind, from being the hunted, becomes the observer. When the reaction is diffused, the second step appears. Allow ***. Allow the emotion to stay instead of chasing it away. We say, I accept this feeling. It may sound counterintuitive, but it's this very acceptance that releases trapped energy. When we stop resisting, the body stops tensing, the heart rate gradually slows. Imagine you are in the middle of a storm. Instead of trying to cover your ears, you open your eyes and watch the wind blow through. The storm doesn't last forever. It just needs to pass through you. The more you resist it, the stronger it becomes. When you let it exist, it dissipates on its own. Allowing is the hardest step, because human instinct is to flee. But only when you allow fear to live within you does it lose its power to dominate. I often tell my students, invite fear to sit down like an uninvited guest. Say, hello, I know you're here, I'm not running anymore. You can stay as long as you like. When you do that, the guest loses interest and quietly leaves. The third step, run toward ***, is the most paradoxical. When we feel afraid, we usually shrink back. But here, we step forward, even saying, I'm excited about this feeling. Because fear and excitement are two sides of the same coin. They are both energy, just named differently. When you change the name, the body reacts differently. From trembling in fear, it shifts to trembling with exhilaration. When you say, I'm excited, you're sending a message to your brain that this is not a threat, just energy that needs to be released. Science calls this reappraisal of arousal, and it can change your physiological response entirely. The final step is to engage with life. Don't sit around waiting for the fear to pass. Do something. Call someone, read a book, clean the house, not to forget, but for the body to remember the natural rhythm of the present. When we participate in the flow of life, the mind stops checking to see if we're anxious. That's when the recovery process quietly unfolds. You don't have to feel peaceful to act. Act so peace can emerge. I have seen many people apply these 4 steps and return to life. They no longer avoid airports, supermarkets, or theaters. They no longer wait for safety but step directly into life. DARE doesn't eliminate anxiety, it simply takes away its power. When you stop fearing the feeling of fear, you are free. When you stop running, you realize nothing is chasing you. These 4 steps are not magic, but a way for the body and mind to restore the simple truth that you were never out of control. You just forgot that you could stand firm in the wave. And when you remember that, you truly begin to live again. When one understands that the body is not an enemy, they begin to dare to listen to it. The signals that once caused panic now become messages. A rapid heart rate is not the call of death, but a reminder of energy building up, waiting to be released. In that very moment, we learn a new language, the language of courage. The DARE response is born from that language, a sequence of small movements that helps us move through the storm instead of bracing against it. Fear always comes unexpectedly, like a thief in the night. Before we even realize it, the body tenses up, the mind is pulled into a vortex of what-if questions. What if my heart stops? What if I lose control? What if I faint on the street? Millions of people repeat these what ifs every day. But in reality, panic is just a series of survival reflexes triggered in the wrong place. When we understand that, we can diffuse the reaction with a lighthearted attitude. So what? Just 2 words, but they have the power of cutting a circuit breaker between 2 electrical poles. When we say, so what? The brain receives the message that this is not a threat, and the adrenaline flow begins to recede. No complex philosophy is needed, no analysis, just deliberate indifference. A person who once trembled when leaving the house told me, just repeating, so what? 5 times, her heart slowed down as if by magic. There's no magic, just the science of letting go. But so what is only the beginning. The second step is to allow. When we say, I accept this feeling, we are doing what the mind has long forgot, letting everything be as it is. Not enduring, not suffering, but allowing. When we let the body tremble, it will stop trembling. When we allow fear to be present, it loses its reason to cling. Emotions are like ocean waves. The more you fight them, the more you drown. Only when you let go will the waves carry you back to the surface. I often tell those practicing DARE to imagine anxiety as a strange guest knocking at the door. If we close the door, it will knock harder. If we open the door and say, come in, I won't stop you anymore, the guest will stay for a few minutes and then disappear. No intruder stays long in a welcoming home. The third step, run toward the fear. This is the part that surprises many people the most because it goes completely against instinct. But when fear appears, instead of retreating, we step forward and say, I'm excited. Fear and excitement are the same type of energy, just named differently. When we rename it, the body changes its reaction. Instead of trembling with fear, we tremble with anticipation. In neurological studies, this is called cognitive reappraisal of arousal. I once witnessed a middle-aged man who used to cry with fear when driving on the highway tell himself, I'm excited to feel this. Just a month later, he drove cross-country not because the fear disappeared, but because it was no longer an enemy. He had turned fear into a companion. When you see fear as an ally, it cannot harm you. The final step, engage with life. When the wave of fear has calmed, don't sit still. Do anything to let your body know that you are still alive. Wash the dishes, listen to music, call someone, tidy your desk. Don't wait to feel peaceful before acting. Act so that peace appears. When we return to the rhythm of life, the brain no longer checks to see if we're anxious. Attention is focused on the present, causing the spiral of fear to lose energy. That very moment is when the recovery process quietly takes place. No need to be perfect, just need to keep living. Sometimes people think DARE is a way to reassure themselves, but actually it's a new negotiation between the mind and body. The mind says, I'm not running anymore. The body responds, then I don't need to warn you anymore. And in the silence between the two, a new space opens up where anxiety no longer has control. I've seen people trembling in panic burst out laughing, just because they realize that feeling couldn't kill them. When fear is stripped of its power, it transforms into pure energy, like fire burning but not consuming. DARE doesn't teach us to avoid but to live with what we once wanted to destroy. It's a collaboration between courage and understanding. Whenever fear arises, remember that you don't need to fight it. Let it come, observe it, and keep moving forward. Fear is a wave. You are the ocean. No wave is stronger than the place it originates from. When you understand that, you begin to live with a different mindset, no longer the attacked, but the one teaching your body to return to its original instinct. Reacting to real danger, not imagined ones. Someone asked me, will I ever be completely free of anxiety? I said, you don't need to be free of anxiety, you just need to no longer be afraid when it appears. Like someone who was once afraid to swim can now float on water, not because the sea has no waves, but because they have learned to relax. All DARE does is help you remember that ability, the self-regulating capacity that every living creature possesses. When you stop running, you see a path that never had barriers. When you stop being afraid, you see a world that never threatened you. And when you stop judging yourself, you realize that anxiety was never a sign of weakness, but an invitation to live more consciously. Panic attacks come unannounced. They can happen anywhere, in the supermarket, on the subway, or in the quiet of the night. A gentle breeze is enough to ignite a feeling of collapse, heart pounding, chest tightening, vision blurring. In that moment, people believe they are about to die. No one can understand a panic attack unless they've been in one. But I've been there, and I know this paradox. It is completely harmless. A panic attack is just a natural reaction of the nervous system being tricked into thinking we are in danger. When we believe a false signal, the body flees from something that doesn't exist. The only way out of that loop is not to fight but to look directly at it. When panic surges, remember the 4 dare steps. Diffuse the what if thoughts, allow the emotion to exist, run toward it, and engage with life. If you can say in that moment, "Come on, I'm not running anymore," the fear will weaken like a fire lacking oxygen. A person who once experienced dozens of panic attacks every day told me that only when he stopped trying to stop them did everything begin to change. The panic still came, but he was no longer afraid of it. One day, he realized the fear came and left no trace. That wasn't magic, but biological law. When a threat is not fueled by fear, the body turns off the response. In those panic attacks, let your body do its work. Don't try to breathe deeply, don't try to control your heart rate. The body knows how to regulate itself. You just need to allow it to complete its cycle. When adrenaline is fully burned, the trembling subsides, a wave of exhaustion but also relief washes over you. That's a sign of recovery, not failure. Every panic attack is a lesson for the nervous system that there is no real danger. And when the body understands that, it no longer triggers false alarms. I once met a woman who said her biggest fear was losing control. During a panic attack, she thought she was about to faint. I asked, "Have you ever actually fainted?" She was silent, then shook her head. Because no one faints during a panic attack. Fainting is a reaction when blood pressure drops, while panic causes blood pressure to rise. The body cannot be both afraid and unconscious at the same time. When she understood that, she laughed through her tears for the first time. Fear lost its mystique. Only when we see the biological nature of anxiety do we stop believing the illusions it creates. After the panic passes, a feeling of emptiness appears. Many people think it's a sign of weakness, but in fact, it's the space where peace is returning. In that quiet, you can hear your heart beat steadily, feel your breath light. That is the moment to learn the most important thing about DARE: you were never broken. Your body isn't working against you, it's just overprotecting you. Like a guard who has forgotten that the war is over, it just needs you to remind it, "It's okay, I'm safe." When you say that with true belief, your nervous system will listen. From here, we need to let go of the greatest burden, the thought that we are abnormal. Many people live their lives fearing that anxiety makes them different. They compare themselves, they hide it, they feel ashamed. But anxiety doesn't choose people. It comes to pilots, doctors, students, mothers, soldiers. To anyone with a heart that knows how to react to life. When we think we are broken, we nurture a sense of isolation. When we accept that we are just experiencing what millions of others have also experienced, the wall of loneliness crumbles. You are not different. You are just relearning to trust yourself. I met a police officer who collapsed during his shift due to a panic attack. He thought he had lost his ability to work forever. But when guided to see fear as a biological signal, not a sign of illness, he returned to work after just 2 months. He said, "I no longer try to act strong. I just no longer see fear as an enemy." In that statement lies the entire spirit of DARE. Strength is not about not being afraid, but about being able to act despite fear. Let go of the belief that anxiety is the end. You will realize it's just a comma. It's a pause for you to breathe again, so that life can be written more profoundly. People who have survived panic attacks often become more sensitive and compassionate because they understand how fragile and resilient humans are. Not everyone is given the opportunity to see that truth. Anxiety, in a way, is an invitation to return to real life. When a person stops striving to prove they are fine when they can say, "I'm anxious and that's okay." That's when they are truly fine, not because anxiety has disappeared, but because it has lost its dominion. From here, every fear is just a small ripple on a calm sea. You don't need to wish for the sea to be waveless. You just need to know that you are the ocean, and the ocean is never afraid of itself. There's nothing wrong with you, nothing to hide, nothing to eliminate. Just understand that anxiety is a response of a body trying to protect you, and you can guide it in the right direction when you stop resisting. You are doing what nature desires most, returning to a state of balance. From there, life opens up as if for the first time. Not because everything has changed, but because you have changed. You no longer live to avoid fear, but to move through it. And when you do that, you realize that everything you once sought, peace, freedom, and strength, has always been within you, just waiting for you to trust again. There's something strange about how humans deal with anxiety. We never truly acknowledge it. Every morning we wake up, instead of listening to what's happening inside, we immediately say no. No, I don't want to feel this way. No, I don't want to think that. No, I don't want my body to tremble. No, I don't want my heart to race. No, I don't want to see the shadow of fear. The entire life of someone suffering from anxiety is a series of rejections, an endless battle with themselves. We live as if being pursued, not by the outside world, but by our own inner emotions. But the irony is, the more we resist, the stronger the fear grows. Resistance is the fuel for anxiety. Every time we try to push that feeling away, the body interprets it as a sign of danger, and it intensifies its response. Every time we say no, the brain releases more adrenaline, sending the message, fight! And so the endless loop begins. Anxiety doesn't come on its own. It's fed by the actions we repeat every day, resistance. I've witnessed countless people living in their homes as if in bunkers. They lock doors, draw curtains, trying to create absolute safety, only to realize that the enemy is still in their head. The harsh truth is that fear is not defeated by avoidance but dissolved by acceptance. The first thing to learn is to stop saying no. Instead, say yes, not a false, intellectual yes, but a complete, bodily yes. When we say yes to anxiety, we cut off the flow of fear. Try it just once. During a racing heartbeat, instead of gripping the chair, whisper, "Yes, I'm afraid, I allow this to happen." A simple statement, but it reverses the entire biological response. Because when the body hears allow, it understands there's no longer a threat, and the adrenaline cycle stops. Anxiety no longer has fuel to burn. This is a paradox that the mind often struggles to accept. How can one agree with something that causes suffering? But in reality, acceptance doesn't mean approval. It simply means we are no longer resisting. When we allow the wave of emotion to pass, it no longer has a reason to surge. The feeling of fear acts like an ocean wave. It comes, it goes. Only when we build a wall to block it does the wave crash and sweep everything away. Someone who learns to say yes will experience a miracle. Peace doesn't come after fear disappears, but as soon as we stop trying to control it. I remember someone once asking me, if I accept anxiety, aren't I just giving up? I smiled. Giving up and accepting are two different things. Giving up is abandoning hope, while acceptance is ceasing to resist reality. When we stop resisting, energy returns and we begin to control the very thing we thought we had lost control of. Like someone struggling in water, only when they stop flailing does their body float. When you say yes to anxiety, you are restoring the connection with yourself. The body understands that you no longer see it as an enemy. The brain stops warning, the heart rate slows. Breathing returns to its natural rhythm. In that moment, we don't conquer fear. We simply stop giving it a reason to exist, and that is the greatest victory. A person who used to be afraid of flying once recounted that she always prepared sedatives for every trip, but that time she decided to try something different. When the plane shook, instead of taking medication, she placed her hand on her chest and whispered, "Come on, I allow it." She trembled for a few minutes, then suddenly felt relief. Nothing happened. The fear was no longer a monster, but just her own shadow. Since that day, she no longer carries medication. When we dare to say yes in a moment of fear, we are creating an opening for light to enter. Acceptance doesn't come from willpower, but from trust. Trust that our body is wise enough to regulate itself. Resistance creates anxiety, while acceptance creates peace. Anxiety is not an enemy, but an overactive survival reflex. It just needs to be guided back to its natural rhythm. But to do that, we must go further, not just accepting emotions, but ending the fear of bodily sensations. Because when the mind has said yes, the body will ask, "What about me?" And that is where the next journey begins, learning to live with the signals we once thought were threats. When we have learned to say yes to fear, another door opens. The body begins to speak. It speaks through our heart rate, our breath, the trembling in our hands, the suffocating feeling that seems like death. That is what many still call symptoms of anxiety. But in reality, it is the natural language of survival. When adrenaline floods the blood, the body isn't betraying us. It's doing exactly what thousands of years of evolution have taught it to do: keep us alive. The problem is simply that we are using this survival mechanism for situations that are not dangerous at all. The physical sensations of anxiety are completely harmless. When the heart beats fast, it's a sign of strength, not collapse. When breathing is rapid, the body is pumping oxygen to prepare for a response. When dizzy, it's blood rushing up to protect the brain. Everything is logical, but the mind misinterprets the body's language. turning it into a message of doom. And so, with just one stronger than normal beat, people think they are about to faint. With just one missed breath, they believe they are about to die. In reality, nothing is happening. The body is just doing its job, and we, out of fear, are fighting our own protector. I call it the paper tiger. It looks scary, but when we approach it, it's just a shadow on the wall. Every sensation in the body is a paper tiger like that. We spend our lives running from them without ever really looking closely at what we are afraid of. When you dare to stand still and feel, you realize the tiger has no teeth, no claws, just a shape magnified by the light of the mind. When we realize this, we step into a realm of freedom where no sensation can control us anymore. To be truly free, one must stop fearing their own body. When a sensation appears, don't ask how to make it stop. Ask what it is trying to tell you. Let it pass. Don't analyze, don't try to do anything. Just stay. Stay with that heart rate, stay with that breath, and watch. Nothing happens. No one has ever died from an anxiety attack, but millions have lived as if they were about to die because they couldn't trust their own bodies. Then, when the body begins to be freed from doubt, the mind will ask another question: what about the world out there? Because fear doesn't just live in the body, it also resides in spaces. Some people are afraid of supermarkets, some are afraid of elevators, some are afraid of flying, afraid of movie theaters, afraid of crowds, afraid to leave home. Every place once associated with a panic attack becomes forbidden territory. We draw a map of false safety, and the more we shrink that map, the stranger the world becomes. To reclaim freedom, we must dare to step out of that fear map, but not with willpower. Step with trust. Dare calls this the courage ladder, starting with the smallest steps. If you're afraid to go to the supermarket, just walk out to the parking lot today, then go back. Tomorrow, walk a few more steps. Little by little, each small step teaches the nervous system the truth. There's no danger there. The body just needs evidence, and each time you stay a little longer, it will remember. A man once told me he couldn't sit on a plane for more than 5 minutes without breaking into a cold sweat. After understanding this method, he decided not to avoid it anymore. He bought a ticket for a short flight, and throughout the journey, he whispered, "Come on, I allow it." The plane shook, he maintained his breathing. Upon landing, he didn't scream with joy, he just smiled softly. He said it was the first time he felt truly alive, not just existing in fear. Freedom isn't where fear is gone, but where we stop running. Every time you dare to stay in a situation that makes you tremble, you are rewriting memories for your brain. Every time you don't run away, you're teaching your body that we are okay. When you do that long enough, self-confidence emerges, not because you're no longer afraid, but because you know you can face it. A confident person is not someone who never trembles, but someone who has trembled and still moved forward. The truth is, fear doesn't need to be eradicated, it just needs to be witnessed. And when you look directly at it, it dissipates like smoke. Anxiety never had a true form, it only exists in the shadow of resistance. When you turn on the light, only empty space remains, where you can take a deep breath and realize that the world is still there. And so are you. When the body is freed from the fear of itself, the final battle takes place in the mind. No longer the trembling or rapid breathing, but the incessant whispers in the head. What if I go crazy? What if I never get better? What if I lose control right now? These what ifs weave everywhere, penetrating every crevice of consciousness and making people believe that the worst is always about to happen. But the truth is, those thoughts are not reality. They are just meaningless signals magnified by the mind when it's afraid. When we believe that every thought reflects reality, we turn ourselves into its prisoner. The more we try to chase away negative thoughts, the stronger they return. Like trying to push a ball underwater. The harder you press, the more it bounces up. The problem is not the thoughts, but how we react to them. Everyone has strange, even dark thoughts. But ordinary people let them pass, while anxious people hold on to them, examine them, fear them, and then conclude that something must be wrong with them. That is the mind's subtle trap. To escape that trap, we must learn to see thoughts as clouds passing across the sky. When you observe them, you are no longer them. You are just the observer. Let them come, let them go without trying to do anything. Sometimes you will see a frightening image, a warning, a crazy fantasy appear in your mind. Just smile and say, "Hello, I see you," and continue with what you were doing. Every time you do that, the power of the thought diminishes a little. It doesn't disappear, but it no longer controls you. No thought is dangerous if you don't believe in it. The mind can think anything, that's its job. Whether you believe it or not is your choice. When you understand this, you will realize that you never lost control, you just temporarily forgot that you can choose how to react. A thought is just an electrical impulse running through the brain. It has no intention, no morality, no power. Only when you assign meaning to it does it become a ruler. I once told someone that the fear of losing one's mind is one of the strongest illusions anxiety creates. When adrenaline is high, the mind becomes hyperaware, observing itself too closely. That feeling is like, I'm watching myself from the outside, a common state of anxiety, but those experiencing it believe they are going crazy. In reality, it's just a sign of hyperalertness. When adrenaline recedes, that feeling disappears. No one goes crazy from anxiety. Neuroscience confirms it, and thousands of people have proven it with their own experiences. When you no longer believe the what-ifs in your head, a new silence emerges. It's not a scary void, but a space to breathe. You begin to see clearly how the mind works. It throws out a thought, waits for you to react, then throws out another. But when you no longer react, the game ends. Fear only exists when there is resistance, no reaction, no fear. A woman once told me that every morning when she woke up, she was attacked by dark thoughts. What if I faint today? What if I can't go to work? What if I embarrass myself in front of everyone? She tried to push them away, read positive books, listened to happy music, but everything only made them return stronger. Until one day she tried something different, she left them there. She didn't try to fix them, didn't try to avoid them. She whispered, "Go ahead, say what you want, I don't care." A week later, she realized those thoughts still came, but they just floated by and dissipated. She was no longer afraid to wake up. When we let go of the fear of thoughts, the mind becomes as light as a calm lake. Thoughts still come like a gentle breeze touching the water but create no waves. Someone who once lived in mental crisis can now smile when they hear voices in their head and realize, that's just my mind doing its job. At that moment, you are no longer a victim of your mind. You become its friend. When you stop fearing your own thoughts, you touch the deepest level of freedom. Nothing within or without can make you lose your calm because you understand that everything is just a fleeting phenomenon. Emotions, sensations, situations, thoughts all come and go. The only thing that remains is your ability to observe and accept them. That is not avoidance but the highest form of human maturity. When people reach this point, they no longer seek healing, because there's nothing left to heal. No illness, no fault, just an old mechanism relearning to trust life. And when that happens, you step out of the vicious cycle of fear. You no longer need certainty that everything will be fine, because you know that whatever comes, you can face it. That is a freedom no one can take away because it's not outside you. It was within you all along, and when you look back, you will see all the things that once scared you: emotions, sensations, situations, thoughts turned out to be just layers of clothing anxiety put on to hide one single thing you were always strong enough to overcome. Humans can live their entire lives in a cage they lock themselves in. That cage isn't made of iron or stone, but woven from safe habits. Small, tiny boundaries that we believe will protect us from fear. We choose the familiar path to work, choose the seat closest to the exit in a cafe, choose to carry a water bottle and a pill in our bag as a good luck charm. We call them habits. But in reality, they are comfort zones, the cradle of limitation. At first, the comfort zone feels pleasant. It's like a soft blanket a child holds while sleeping, but the tighter we hold it, the more we forget how vast the world outside is. Each time we avoid a place, a situation, we inadvertently tell our brain that there is danger there, and the brain believes it. It reinforces fear, expanding forbidden zones. Then one day, we realize we are no longer living, only existing within a few square meters called safe. The comfort zone doesn't protect us from fear. It sustains fear. The solution isn't to break all boundaries overnight, but to gradually reclaim the lost world. Like someone relearning to walk after an injury, you can't run immediately, but you can take one more step. A little bit each day is enough. If you can't leave home, stand at the door. If you're afraid of the supermarket, go to the parking lot. If you're afraid of the highway, drive a few hundred meters. Each step is a signal sent to the nervous system: we are still safe. When the body believes that, fear retreats. The comfort zone is not a place to live, but a state of mind. You can travel thousands of miles and still be shackled by fear, or sit quietly in a small room and feel free. The difference lies in whether you are choosing or hiding. When you actively choose to stay, that is peace. When you hide to avoid emotions, that is a prison. Therefore, breaking out of the comfort zone isn't about recklessly venturing out, but about stopping at the right moment to realize that there's nothing to avoid. I once met a man who for 10 years only drove within a 5-kilometer radius of his home. He knew every turn, every sign, as if the world was only that big. When he started practicing DARE, he tried to expand his journey, just 1 more kilometer each week. Some weeks he turned back halfway, some weeks he went further. 6 months later, he sent me a photo of himself at the beach more than 100 kilometers from home. He said, "It's not because I'm no longer afraid, but because I stopped waiting for fear to end before I lived." Freedom is not given. It is reclaimed step by step when we dare to trade the feeling of safety for real life. You might still tremble when stepping out the door, your heart might still pound when in a crowd. But that's the heartbeat of someone who is living. Each time you dare to leave your familiar zone, you prove to your brain that the world isn't as scary as it thinks. And day by day, it relearns the truth. You are strong enough to face life. In fact, anxiety doesn't hate freedom. It just doesn't know how to live with freedom. When you bring your body back to experience, fear doesn't disappear, but it becomes faint, like a distant echo. At that moment, what remains is a sense of agency. You choose when to go, when to stop. Not anxiety. That is a small but decisive shift. You become the driver, no longer a passenger shackled by fear. And once you've started to leave that cage, you'll see a miracle. The world never changed, only you did. Places that once scared you now return to normal. Humans are not born to hide but to move. Just once you step across the threshold of your comfort zone, you will realize what anxiety never wanted you to know, that you were never imprisoned. You just forgot how to step out. Freedom always waits on the other side of fear. But when you approach it, it doesn't demand extraordinary courage. It just asks you to be honest with yourself. I'm tired of running. When you admit that, you're halfway there. The rest is just taking one step, then another. And with each step, you're not just moving away from fear, but returning to your true self. The person who once knew how to trust life. When you've tasted that freedom, you won't want to go back to the old place. But the journey isn't over because there's a forbidden zone deeper than physical space, the zone of self-judgment. You can leave your house, travel the world, and still be imprisoned by silent self-reproach. And if you don't learn to be gentle with yourself, you will create a new cage. This time, not made of fear, but of guilt. And from here, a new stage of recovery begins. There's a type of prison that people who have experienced anxiety often build for themselves, even when they've escaped fear. It's no longer fear, but harshness towards themselves. They begin to evaluate every step forward, judge every tremble, and call moments of weakness failures. But in the journey of healing, there's no place for judgment. Only when one learns to be gentle with themselves does the recovery process truly unfold. We are taught from a young age that we must be strong, control everything, and always remain calm. But these very demands exhaust those suffering from anxiety. They don't just fear the fear, they also fear their own reactions. Whenever they feel anxious again, they immediately blame themselves. Why am I not cured yet? I'm so weak. These very words cause the body to fall back into a spiral of stress, when in reality, recovery is not a straight line. It's like a wave, rising, falling, and rising again. Each setback is not a sign of failure, but a natural part of the journey. Letting go of harshness is the biggest step forward in the healing process. Try to look at yourself like a child learning to walk. When it falls, do you scold it? Or do you pick it up, wipe its tears, and let it try again? Your body is the same, it just needs trust, not commands. Every time you sigh with fear and then scold yourself for being weak, you're making your body think it has to fight again. But if you just gently say, "It's okay, let's start again," the nervous system immediately calms down. It understands that you are with it, not against it. I once met a woman who had been free of panic for 2 years, but still lived with the fear that it would return. She monitored herself daily, checking her emotions, measuring her heart rate as if looking for a fault. She said, "I'm tired of always having to be strong." I told her that no one needs to be strong forever. Recovery is not about becoming a superhero, but about knowing how to be weak without fearing weakness. When she learned to forgive herself, the anxiety disappeared, not because she won, but because she no longer fought. One of the most beautiful paradoxes of DARE is that what helps people recover is not control, but letting go. When we stop trying to return to normal, normal returns on its own. When we stop forcing ourselves to be free of anxiety, anxiety loses its reason to exist. You cannot heal by forcing yourself. You can only recover through gentleness. Sometimes we have to accept that we cannot rush the natural process, just like a wound on the skin. You can apply medicine and keep it clean, but you cannot order the cells to heal faster. The nervous system is the same. It recovers when it is trusted. So instead of controlling every day, allow yourself to rest. Let emotions pass without judgment. Every time you choose forgiveness instead of self-blame, your brain learns that safety comes not just from silence, but from compassion. There are people who carry the shadow of perfectionism within them. They don't accept imperfection, even in recovery. But perfectionism is a recurring storm of anxiety, another form of fear, the fear of not being good enough. When you believe you only deserve peace when you are free of anxiety, you will never find peace. Peace doesn't come after perfection. It appears when we accept our imperfections. So, if today you feel heavy, remember that you don't need to move forward every day. Some days just standing still is enough. See it as part of the rhythm of recovery. The body knows how to return as long as you don't block it with judgment. In this journey, self-compassion is not a luxury but the foundation of peace. You don't need to love yourself artificially, just stop fighting with yourself. Every time you say, "I've done well enough," you are opening a door for your nervous system to rest, for your heart to breathe, and for your mind to be at peace. Self-compassion is the foundation of lasting peace. When you learn this, all future fears become lighter. Because you know you're not alone, you're by your own side, no longer abandoning yourself in the storm. And when a new day comes, you don't need to ask if anxiety will return. Because you understand that even if it does, you still know how to face it. But to be truly free, you must learn one more thing: stop fearing that it will last forever. Because only when we are no longer obsessed with the future can we truly live fully in the present. There's a subtle kind of fear that clings tightly to the mind of someone recovering. It's no longer the fear of panic attacks, nor the fear of bodily sensations. It's the fear that anxiety will last forever. Many people say, "I can endure anything as long as it ends soon." That very thought keeps them stuck in anxiety because it carries a condition: "I will only be peaceful when anxiety disappears." But the truth is, no emotion lasts forever, no storm doesn't dissipate. When you stop demanding it to pass quickly, you are allowing it to end on its own. Anxiety functions like a wave. It rises, peaks, and then subsides naturally. If you observe, you'll see every fear has its own rhythm. Heart accelerates, feeling of losing control, then exhaustion, then calming down. The body cannot maintain a state of arousal indefinitely because it's designed to return to balance. But when you panic, you churn the wave, causing it to rise again. That's why the important step is to learn how to ride the wave, to let it rise and pass without being swept away. I once met a man who called me in despair. He said, "I'm much better, but sometimes anxiety comes back. I'm afraid I'll never escape it." I told him that what he was feeling wasn't a relapse, but a test. The nervous system wants to be sure that he truly believes in this process. Just like when a wound is almost healed, it itches. Not because it hurts, but because cells are regenerating. The setbacks you experience are just signs that your body is reinforcing new beliefs. If you get scared and retreat, your brain will think the threat still exists. If you accept and move forward, your brain will understand, we are truly safe now. Nothing lasts forever, not even anxiety. When you stop fearing that you'll be stuck in it, you begin to break free. A truly free person isn't someone who never worries, but someone who no longer cares when worry appears. The wave comes, you look at it, nod, and let it pass. When there's no resistance, the energy of fear dissolves on its own. Peace is not a destination, but a state when you stop demanding anything to be different. And then, when you can look at anxiety without wanting it to disappear, you begin to see something deeper. It was never a curse, but a teacher. No one wants to go through suffering, but it is those who have faced anxiety who become the most profound individuals. They understand what fragility is, they know what courage is. Anxiety forces us to stop, look within ourselves, and realize that we have lived too long trying to control. It strips away all our defenses so that we must confront what we usually avoid most, ourselves. Someone asked me, "If you could choose again, would you want to have never experienced anxiety?" I said no, because it taught me how to live. Anxiety is not an enemy, it is a signal of awakening. It only becomes cruel when we fight against it, but when we listen, it becomes a guiding map. It shows us wherein our mind is overloaded, wherein our life is out of balance. It forces us to learn to rest, to learn to breathe, to learn to truly be present. When we stop viewing anxiety as a tragedy, we realize we are growing. The fear that once made us shrink now becomes proof that we are alive, still feeling, still learning to love this life. Someone who has gone through panic understands the value of a peaceful breath more than anyone. They know how to appreciate the morning light, the bird song, and even the ordinary silences they once took for granted. If there's one thing this journey teaches us, it's that life doesn't promise to be easy, but it is always worth living. Anxiety is not a curse that drags us down, but an invitation to awaken. It teaches us to let go of unnecessary things, expectations, judgments, the craving for control, to return to the present. And when we are in the present, all fears vanish because fear can only live in the future. When you understand this, you no longer need to run from fear, nor do you need to prove your strength. You just need to live fully in every moment, even if your heart still trembles. Because true courage is not about not trembling, but about daring to tremble and still move forward. And when you do that, one day you will look back and see that what you thought was a burden turned out to be the greatest gift life ever gave you. Finally, when all layers of fear fall away, all that remains is simple peace. No more questions about when anxiety will end, no more longing for a day without fear. There is only the present with everything as it is, and in that present you don't need to be perfect, you don't need to be strong, you don't need to be different. You just need to be yourself. The person who was once afraid, once weak, but still stood firm, still moved forward, and still dared to live with an open heart. Anxiety is no longer something to be cured, but proof that you have learned the most important lesson. Peace comes not from avoiding life, but from daring to live in its midst. Perhaps the greatest lesson from this journey is not how to stop anxiety, but how to learn to live with it while maintaining the freedom of the soul. Anxiety doesn't disappear. It just changes form. From an enemy to a teacher, from an obsession to a reminder that we are still alive, still feeling, still brave enough to face ourselves. Each of us has a dark place where fear, doubt, and old limitations hide, but light is never found in denial. It only appears when we dare to look directly into the darkness and say, "I'm not running anymore." Perhaps that's when you tremble in a crowd, or when your heart pounds in the quiet night. But in that very moment, when we no longer try to be perfect, when we accept ourselves as we are, that is the moment we become free. This book doesn't teach us to become numb or invincible, but to understand human fragility. That true strength lies not in controlling everything, but in the ability to smile even when unsure of what lies ahead. That peace is not the absence of fear, but when fear no longer dictates how we live. And perhaps the most thought-provoking question after reading is not how to get rid of anxiety, but what in ourselves are we still denying? How many times have we said no to emotions, to experiences, to our bodies, even to those who love us just out of fear? And if today we say yes for the first time, even to one small thing, will life change?